Welcome to today's episode of How the Game Was Won. And today we're looking at a game between Muzychuk of the Ukraine and Hou of China. And this game played in the Monaco Grand Prix Monte-Carlo. And the game was played on the 14th of October 2015. And it must be noted that not only can you classify this as a how the game was won, but more importantly, you can look at it as how the tournament was won. And how needing to obviously lay down the gauntlet ahead of her World Championship match against Muzychuk that's happening also in Monaco coming up in 2016. Playing with the black pieces needed to make a very decisive and bold psychological blow against the reigning world champion. And she did this obviously by choosing the Sicilian defense when winning at all costs with the black pieces is what you are after. And in this instance we're looking at the Moscow variation of the Sicilian. So without further ado, we fly through the couple of opening moves with e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop e5, check, knight e7, castles, a6, bishop d3, knight g2, f6, c4, and we continue with g6, knight c3, bishop g7, rook e1, and here how it plays knight g4. And the importance of knight g4 is it's to try and prevent white's idea of possibly playing something along the lines of a bishop to e1, so bishop to f1 followed by playing d4, because in this instance the d4 square is a very important square that needs to be controlled, and at all costs Hou is trying to prevent Muzychuk from claiming any sort of control over the d4 square, and instead wants to claim control of that square for herself. Continuing with bishop f1, knight g to e5, d3, castles, bishop e3, knight f3. And again, the knight taking on f3 is again with the express purpose of clamping down on that d4 square. Queen takes f3, knight e5, queen d1, knight c6. And here you can see how has rerouted the knight all the way back around to the c6 square, again to be exerting pressure down onto that all important d4 square. Queen d2, rook b8, knight e2, e5, still preventing Muzychuk from being able to make that d4 push. Continuing knight c3, bishop e6, knight d5, b5. And as you can see, black's position is becoming easier and easier to play with the options of being able to make a break down the king side and a break down the queen side, whereas white's position is becoming more and more cramped. And what's more, that knight down on a1 is looking very isolated from the rest of the game. Continuing b3, f5, g3, the first critical error that Muzychuk played in this game. For instance, e takes f5, g takes f5, rook c1 would have left white with an inferior but still playable position. But instead, Muzychuk played g3, which Hou's ever alertness allows her to push the f4 pawn. We've got g takes f4, e takes f4, knight takes f4, and so up until this move was part of Muzychuk's calculation, but she mentioned that in the post-game interview that she calculated up to this point, but she hadn't calculated deep enough to be able to take into account Hou's incredibly strong reply with bishop g4. And by playing bishop g4, effectively leaves that a1 rook completely hanging under the attack from the g7 bishop. And it's clear to see that the knight is going to be coming into e5, for instance, and the rook sitting on f8 is in perfect position to be able to exert pressure straight down the f-file, which has now been opened up. And all in all, already in just 21 moves, you can effectively call it positionally lost for white and positionally winning for black. We continue with bishop d2, knight e5, h3, knight f3, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, knight e6. Here, for instance, how or Muzychuk could have played, for instance, knight e2, queen h4, king h2, bishop e5 with check, knight g5, bishop g4, but it'd still be a winning position for black. But Muzychuk played knight e6, which allows queen h4, knight g5, and h6, which is an incredibly accurate move by Hou, which again, as I mentioned earlier, that rook sitting on a1 is completely out of the game. It's effectively as if Hou's playing with an extra rook on the board, because there's absolutely no ways that a1 rook can get anywhere near to being a relevant piece as far as the white's defenses are concerned. Continuing with knight takes f3, rook takes f3, d4, rook takes an h3, the king goes to f1, queen g4, and in this position Muzychuk resigned because there's absolutely no ways that she'll be able to prevent the complete and total mating attack onslaught that is going to be following in short succession with that rook coming down to h1. So that, my friends, is how the game was won. Hou picks up the win with the black pieces and effectively picks up the win of the Monaco Grand Prix. She went on to be sealing her win with a I think it was either 1.5 or 2 point difference over Muzychuk that was sitting in second place. So it was a complete and dominant performance by Hou. And feel free to share this video out amongst all of your chess friends. Remember, give me a thumbs up if you like this type of content, thumbs down if not, that way I know what to be putting out in the future. Also, remember to post any comments, questions, criticisms that you may have in the space down below the video. And also, as you look down just below the video screen within YouTube, you'll see a big red subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button, that way you stay subscribed to my channel for all the new content that comes out on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis. And stay carved up for the win out there. I'll be seeing you next time for another episode of How the Game Was Won. Till then, cheers.